So again, good afternoon and welcome to this multi-location meeting of the Community Finance and Strategic Leadership Committee on the 20th of February 2025. I am Councillor Carl Jordan and I will be chairing this meeting. Can you please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? And I wish to remind members signing in remotely of their legal obligations to have their cameras switched on during the meeting and in order to be seen and heard while participating in council business. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members were virtually viewing this meeting, could you raise your electronic hand? And for the members in the chamber, can you kindly raise your hands? We've received apologies from Councillor Jeff Jones, Councillor Rob Jones, and Councillor Anthony Richards. And at present, we have the Councillor Phil Rogers, who's attending whilst on his way to Ireland. If he drops off, we'll take it that you've gone from the Wi-Fi system. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to agenda item 2, which are declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members?
I can't see any declarations, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to agenda item 3, which are the minutes of the previous meetings, I should say, sorry. You will see the minutes attached at pages 5 to 28 of your agenda packs. And if you feel that these minutes are an accurate record of the meetings, please can I have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take these minutes are approved.
I can see no indications to the contrary, Chair, so I can confirm the minutes are approved.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to agenda item 4, which is part 1. And this is to consider items that are selected from the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. And I can confirm there are no Cabinet Forward Work Programme items to be considered today. Moving on to part 2, which is agenda item 5. And again, these are to consider items from the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. And again, I can confirm there are no items from the Cabinet Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. Part 3, which is agenda item 6. And these are the performance monitoring. We will now move to consider the performance monitoring items. So agenda item 6A, which are the Strategy and Corporate Services Quarter 3 performance summaries of 2024/2025. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to this report, please?
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Prynawn da aelodau. Good afternoon, members. The Strategy and Corporate Services Directorate, made up of Digital Services, Legal and Democratic Services, Organisational Development and People Management, underpin the overall delivery of the authority's corporate plan. Without those enabling services in place, together with the finance team with you, the other directors would not be able to deliver the services that they do to the residents of Neath Talbot Council. I think a point very well articulated by yourselves as members back when we discussed the budget in January. And what you have before you, if you remember back in November, we presented, or my heads of service presented their service business plans for 24/25 that articulated what they would be looking to deliver and achieve during the current financial year. And back in November, we presented you with a half-year report and update on performance. What you have before you is the quarter 3 update on performance aligned against those service business plans. And all heads of service are here and happy to take any questions you might have as members. Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Norwin. Members, it's now over to you to ask questions. I'd like to add that we received 3 questions in yesterday's pre-meeting. So if we can go in the order that they were raised yesterday, and then we'll take further questions. So we're looking to Councillor Patterson in the chamber, please. One question? No?
Sorry, at the pre-briefing, I apologise that I wasn't ready to ask questions. So
Okay.
I'm here today, but I didn't ask any then. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Sean Percy next then, please. Councillor Percy, looks like you may have frozen on screen. So again, we're going to move on to Councillor Andrew Dacey, please.
Right, okay, thank you, Chair. On page 44 of the report, there's a number of reportable accidents and incidents. There's 654 for the 3 quarters, and lost time accidents is 46. This is a high number considering, well, considering it's only the 3rd quarter. 46 lost time accidents. Is there a breakdown of what's caused them accidents? And if you look further down on the health and safety training, the percentage of training has been taken up as 11, 16 and 22. So there's got to be a room for improvement there, hasn't it? Either for the health and safety training to get better, or for us to cut out our accidents. From a safety background, they are high figures in any form of work. So can someone break down them figures for me, please, and see where we can improve?
Thank you, Councillor Dacey, for that. We're going to take you over to Sheena Rees, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Dacey, for asking the question. The reason that we try and share health and safety information is to get people interested in what's happening in terms of health and safety across the organisation. The more we share information, the more we highlight it, the more we help to create a safe culture within the organisation. So I'm grateful to have the question. I can provide you with a breakdown, so I'll run through some stats which might be of interest to you this afternoon. But what I was also going to suggest, Chair, is that we are preparing an annual health and safety report. So that will be ready probably around May time, so following the end of the financial year. And that's something that I could bring back to this committee, because that will help you dig down into the stats and see what's behind these headline figures, which I appreciate can look alarming when you just see that one statistic. So that's something I could do in future months, Chair. But I'll just run through some information this afternoon. So in terms of how our accident and incidents break down, the vast majority of them relate to service users in some way. So for example, 21, so I'm talking about the 3rd quarter here. I've got the stats in front of me for the activity in the 3rd quarter. When we bring the annual report, you can see everything. So in the 3rd quarter, 21 incidents related to challenging behaviour from service users. 10 incidents occurred during control and restraint. 173 relate to physical assault by a service user. 13 related to verbal abuse. When we look at what you might think of as accident or understand as accidents more, so when we look at slip, trips or falls, there were 14 of those. We had 8 employees who were hit by a moving, flying or falling object. Those are just examples, but I wanted to give you a flavour for the fact that the vast majority of accidents and incidents relate to our service users. And sometimes that can be difficult to prevent happening. What's really important is that we help our employees to minimise what could be the results of that accident or incident. So that's why your restraint training is particularly important. In terms of how we compare to the previous year, and I had the previous year's stats right in front of me and I can't find them. Where are we? Right, so in terms of Q3 last year, we actually had 240 accidents and incidents. So in quarter terms, this year we're higher, but overall this year, we're actually 21 accidents and incidents lower over the course of the year. So we're probably broadly comparable year on year. In terms of where the accidents and incidents are actually occurring, I've told you that it relates to service users, so it probably won't be a surprise to understand that the vast majority of accidents and incidents are occurring in either social services or in education, and that the majority of those are occurring in Hillside Secure Home and quite the majority of accident incidents in schools are either occurring in our primary schools or in our special schools. So I think that's probably enough information to give you verbally this afternoon, Chair. But if you're happy, we'll bring the annual health and safety report to one of these committees in either May or June, if that's okay with members.
Thank you for that, Sheena. Councillor Dacey, are you happy with the response from the officers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The only thing is that the lost time accidents, obviously there's people within employed by the council, that is. So I assume that's quite high as well. So if we can target that to get that down lower, so people take less time off and obviously less overtime, then it's going to be a win-win for us as a council. And obviously we don't want to injure anybody that we employ, obviously. So that's my opinion on that. So I wait for the report, see where we can make improvements on the lost time accidents.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dacey. We believe that Councillor Sean Percy is back online. Sean, are you ready to raise a question?
Yeah, I'll try my best, Chair. Diolch. Yes, my question is in relation to the item on magic notes transcription, which is digital services item being implemented in social services. Two questions on that, really. It's mentioned being a pilot. Have we made that a permanent arrangement now? But I suppose what I was most curious about is, how robust and accurate we found that to be. Obviously, that type of kind of transcription and summarising software is really useful for lots of applications. I suppose if we're finding it robust and useful in social services, there's a whole other range of service areas I'm sure we could find use for it as well. So I'd be curious to know a little bit more, particularly from digital services perspective, how they feel that's gone and whether we've had any feedback from the service area as well. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. We're going to move you over to Chris Owens online, please.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Percy, for the question. Yeah, we're doing a lot of work in the generative artificial intelligence space at the moment, looking at how we can use technology to support service areas in delivering their services differently. We've got a all-member seminar lined up on the 13th of March, where we're going to talk through the specific use cases that we've seen across the authority so far to bring members up to speed on some of the really innovative practices that are taking place. And it's really pleasing that really Neath Talbot is again, being seen to lead the way across Wales in local government in this space. So we are really flying the flag for how this technology can be used and adopted. In terms of Magic Note specifically, though, we've been running a pilot since probably September, October last year with the front door for adult social care, specifically using this product to look at transcribing in-person conversations. And the strength of this product is all around the prompts that have been built into it from a social care specific perspective. So it's not something that you would lift and shift into education, for argument's sake, directly, because of the way it's been built for social care at the heart of it. In terms of the pilot findings, we focused on 3 key areas. The first one being around time savings specifically. So by using this technology, what were the time savings that the social workers were seeing? And it was really pleasing that the reports coming back from the people involved in the pilot were that each assessment that they were writing up, they were saving on average around 25 minutes. But more importantly, across the whole week of assessments, it was actually resulting in around 7.5 hours per person in reduction of admin time as a result of the transcription that was operating. So clearly, huge savings in that space. Quality and accuracy was another area that we wanted to really test. So when they were using it, how accurately was it capturing the conversations? We'd seen with Copilot, for example, that it could be quite hit or miss. Accents are causing problems, and various other factors can make it not quite capture the conversation fully. But again, because this has been built from a social care perspective, it understands the terminology and understands the language that social workers are using far better than a generic tool like Copilot currently does. So the accuracy that were being reported on by the users was over 97% accurate. So huge accuracy levels there, which again was phenomenal and really sort of blew us away. What we also then sort of looked at was the user sentiment, we call it, which is so the caseworkers that were engaged in using technology, how do they find it? Was it easy to use? Were they finding it beneficial? And literally 100% of the users involved found it of benefit to them. In fact, if someone's saying, please don't take it away, it's transforming my life, it's really making my job so much easier. Obviously, it's really important to point out with these types of technologies that we're not just taking the transcription verbatim. So the user involved, the caseworker, is validating and vetting the transcription before it gets put onto the case file for the individuals. So there's always a human involved in that piece. But in terms of the accuracy, the speed, the actual improved conversations that the caseworkers are able to have with the residents, it's really changing the way that they're looking at using this type of technology to engage in those conversations. So we fed this back to the social services, and they've of course wanted to now lock this in, and we're literally at the point of deploying this into a broader sort of area within social services. I think they're looking at the hospital discharge team, and then there'll be almost like a rolling program as to how it can go into other areas then across the service. From a digital services perspective, we're obviously facilitating, we're introducing the technology, making sure that we're doing all the information governance aspects, data protection, all that jazz. But it's really then down to the social services directorate as to how they want to deploy this and transform their services on the back of it. But as I say, we'll talk more about this and other case studies in that seminar on the 13th of March.
Thank you for the response, Chris. Sean Percy, anything you want to come back in on?
No, that was very, very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Percy, for your question. Councillor Reynolds, next then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for not being able to get to pre-briefing this week, so not giving advance notice of the question. I wondered, I'm looking at page 44 on the report, and under people and organisational development, we've got a number of new employees, we've got employee turnover rate, and then we've got percentages of employees who leave the council, whether on a voluntary or... What are the numbers of employees leaving the council, please? It's very difficult to interpret percentages without those.
Sheena, do you have a response for Councillor Reynolds, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So, Councillor Reynolds, we can provide the numbers. I don't have the numbers right here, right now, but yes, we can provide those. So, for future reports, we can put the numbers as well as the percentages, if that would help.
That would be very gratefully received. We did have a discussion a while back about performance reports and the need to be, percentages mean nothing without the numbers, what they're percentage of. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Reynolds. Members, thank you for your responses, and officers for questions and responses for you to take back. Following scrutiny, members, we note the report. So now we're going to move on to agenda item 6B, which is the Welsh Language Promotion Strategy Annual Report of 2023-2024. Norwyn Daniel is going to come in. Thank you.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Mae'n bleser gen I cyflwyno'r adroddiad blynyddol ar ein strategaeth hybu'r iaith Gymraeg. I'm pleased to be able to present the annual report for 23-24 on our Welsh language promotion strategy. Focuses on 3 key areas: increasing the number of Welsh speakers, increasing the use of Welsh, and creating favourable conditions on an infrastructure and context in the county borough. The report articulates a number of key areas of work that were undertaken during 23-24. I'll be honest, due to capacity, we weren't able to progress as much as we would have wanted to, but we did employ a member of staff full-time into the team back in September of last year, and we're already seeing the benefits of having somebody in that post full-time in terms of driving both equalities, diversity and Welsh language agendas forward. Welsh language, promoting Welsh language strategy obviously focuses also on Welsh language within our communities, but as well as the workforce within Neath Talbot Council. Some of the improvements that have been made. So, for example, when I started in June 23, I went to the induction session and there wasn't a single word of Welsh on any of the induction slides used. I can now confirm that all the slides are fully bilingual. And there are small changes. The sway message that goes out from directors and the chief executive is now also bilingual. So all we're trying to do, I guess, is increase the visibility and use of the Welsh language from a workforce perspective, but then also linking in with the mentor iaith in our communities to promote the use of the Welsh language within our communities, and also providing plenty of opportunities for both the workforce to learn Welsh and for people in the community to learn the language as well. My office is here, Chair, to take any questions members may have on the report. Diolch.
Diolch, Llanwyn. Members, we have two questions which were raised in pre-brief yesterday. The first one on the agenda was from Councillor Percy. Do you still wish to raise a question?
Yes, Chair, diolch. Yeah, only a couple of points really on this one from me, and there's quite a few mentions in the report, quite rightly, about the opportunity that is going to be presented with the other side of the Margam, and I think we've just got to be careful that what we don't end up doing is having some of these like sort of time limited one-off things happening. And what I hope we'll be able to do is start some things doing this Eisteddfod process and build on them and continue them. And I just kind of wanted to make that point, just in terms of what was expressed in the report. Yes, we can grab those opportunities while they're there, but let's get some longer term interventions ongoing as well. And then the second point, just in relation to one of the action points around promoting Welsh in the community, and there's a reference there to what happens in Pontardawe Arts Centre, which is great. And I know we have Welsh language theatre and bands and music, etc., happening there. But what we don't have is anything elsewhere in the county that's sort of being coordinated. We get the odd thing happening in an uncoordinated manner that, you know, maybe somewhere we'll book a Welsh language band. But I think if we're going to really increase visibility of the Welsh language, and particularly give people opportunities to use Welsh post leaving Welsh education, I think we need to be thinking and working with Mentor Iaith, but seeing what role we should take to sort of lead this, about having more cultural activities across the county. And I know, for example, Swansea tend to be doing a lot on that front with Mentor Iaith Abertawe. So observations really, but when I sort of looked at that report, I thought, yeah, I can go to Pontardawe, but that's a good trek for me to experience Welsh language cultural activities. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. We have Karen Furlow coming back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Percy, for your points you've raised. In relation to the first one regarding the Earth, so shortly we're going to be launching our Let's Talk Welsh campaign with the support of our internal Welsh Language Officers group. Now, the aim of the campaign is to develop communications and promotional activity to promote the Welsh language and culture. That'll help us deliver on Action 3.5 in the action plan. But that activity will also include making the most of the opportunities in the lead up to the Earth in May, during the festival, and the legacy of the festival as well. That's really important. That'll be a really important aspect of that work. In addition as well, officers from the Corporate Policy, Performance and Engagement team, where the work for developing this report sits, are now part of the Earth Communications Group. So that will ensure that opportunities are not missed and that any activity carried out as part of the Let's Talk Welsh campaign is complementary to the promotional activity around the Earth. In relation to your point you raised about the emphasis on Pontardawe, there were events held outside Pontardawe during the reporting year that this annual report relates to, but unfortunately we didn't have the mechanisms in place to record them. But going forward, discussions with Mentor Iaith Neath Talbot will be amplifying the promotion of their Welsh language events across Neath Talbot through our internal and external channels. So that will include promoting them on our events database, the Council's events database, and sharing details internally with staff via our newsletters. Ensuring that then this will ensure that these are captured and reported on, so future annual reports will be a much more comprehensive account of the events that have been held across Neath Talbot. In addition to that, Neath Talbot Libraries, who regularly hold Welsh language and cultural events, will be recording details of those going forward, and they'll also be included in these annual reports going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Percy, you okay with the response?
If I could just come back briefly, Chair, if that's okay. Yeah, no, I'd certainly appreciate that, and good to hear that we're going to have a little bit of focus on that legacy of the ISED folks. I think that is important, so that's good to hear. And likewise, perhaps we're going to be a bit more robust in how we're going to gather all the data of what's happening. I think, yeah, whilst Pontardawe was picked out in the report, I'm aware there's other things going on, but I think from a cultural point of view, it does seem to be where we've had that focus for a long time. It's almost like we can tick the box there and we're happy. And what I guess what I'm saying is, from a council point of view, maybe we need to be pushing a little bit onto Mentor Iaith to make sure that there's a good spread of activities. I know I've personally been involved in trying to get Mentor Iaith to fund a cultural activity in Port Talbot or fund something going on in Port Talbot, and it's difficult. And you know, it is just it seems to be custom and practice in other areas, and we're not quite there yet in Port Talbot and perhaps in Neath as well. So I guess that's the point. It's just what role we're going to take as an authority to ensure that there's that good spread across the county. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Neuren's going to come back. Thank you.
Yeah, diolch, Cynghorydd Percy, am y sylwadau hynny. I think we've also got to bear in mind as well that the authority does have a culture strategy and a destination plan in place, and the Welsh language was weaved throughout both of those strategies. So I'm hopeful, and it'll be something that yourselves as elected members can monitor, that by having those as an integral part of both of those strategies, that we will see a broader spread of Welsh cultural events within Neath Port Talbot Council. I think, you know, the Eisteddfod can be a good launch pad for a number of those activities, and I totally agree. You know, they said that leaving that legacy behind in the county is going to be absolutely critical. Otherwise, we've missed the golden opportunity, haven't we, to promote the Welsh language and culture within our schools, but also within our Welsh and non-Welsh speaking communities in the county. So hopefully there will be a programme of events with Chris Saunders and his team. He's got an events team in place now that will help promote the use of the Welsh language at all events around the county. Diolch.
Diolch, Neuren. Councillor Percy, you okay with that?
Yes, diolch.
Thank you. We have two more requests to speak. We're going to go to Councillor Sonia Reynolds first, please, as she submitted a question online, and then we're going to come to Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering, as we're looking at, you know, the destination strategy and the placemaking strategy and things like that, whether within our development of the RDLP that's been going on and the planning department's activities at the moment, there is any consideration of Welsh language needs and the possibilities of maintaining and protecting and helping to support the people who live in our Welsh language speaking communities currently, and making sure that we don't, you know, that our policies there don't result in greater dilution than is necessary. The sort of practices we run in our education department, where we have to do a look at the impact if we're building new schools, etc., on Welsh language. We are, in my knowledge, we're not requiring social housing in valley communities. And because of that, there is a likelihood that we won't have affordable accommodation for local people rather than more expensive houses. And I wondered what the planning department were doing within this policy, whether they took part or whether it was, you know, something which was not featuring in any way at all.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Reynolds. Karen's going to come back.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. I know you copied Lana Bynan in when you emailed in your question, and Lana has provided a very comprehensive response via email to your question. That email also includes links to a number of documents. So, Chair, if you're happy, I can circulate that, arrange for that to be circulated following the meeting. I have pulled out some of the key points, though, Councillor Reynolds. So, in accordance with Planning Policy Wales, TAN 20 and the Development Plans Manual, a Welsh language impact assessment has been carried out. It's an ongoing assessment of the plan and is an iterative process. The next stage of the plan will include more detailed proposals and an assessment of the effects on the Welsh language of all the proposals within the deposit plan and will be undertaken in advance of a consultation on that plan. The cultural importance of the Welsh language to many of our communities is and will continue to be recognised through the designation of language sensitive areas. It's important to note that although not specifically referenced in strategic policy, it is not the Council's intention to remove the language sensitive area designations. This will be fully assessed and considered in the development of the deposit RLDP alongside the development of specific development management policies. The team that Lana's in will review the existing language sensitive area designations and justify any amendments to the approach if needed in the deposit plan. Further work will be undertaken to assess existing LDP policy and supplementary planning guidance and whether it continues to be fit for purpose in light of more recent evidence. The candidate and urban capacity site assessment is ongoing, and consideration of whether a candidate site is located within an existing Welsh language sensitive area as defined by the adopted LDP. The results of that ongoing assessment will be reported at the deposit planning stage. I know that response is very technical, Chair. There is a much more comprehensive response that we can circulate by email, and there's lots of links to some documents in there as well for the committee.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Reynolds, you happy with the reply?
That's very helpful. Thank you, Stacey, for going through that for me, and my thanks to Lana.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Moving on to Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy, please.
Hiya. Two things. Basically, it's obviously we've had a lot of the budget and that of late, and you know all of this is going on is great for Welsh speakers and those who wish to learn Welsh. However, I am getting to the point myself personally as a non-Welsh speaker of where I feel now, because the policy is not being put in place and that, my emails is the Welsh language first. It's, you know, the road signs Welsh first and that. And I think, you know, under a lot of the legislation we've got is choice. And therefore, have we got some sort of system whereby my choice is how I read my emails and that, is English first or Welsh first? And I'd also be interested, I know it's not in the document, I'd also like to know how much is it actually costing us on the Welsh language in the authority currently for obviously the Welsh speakers. And that's not obviously anyone coming in with a political thing of about all of the others wanting or needing to learn Welsh. It's the fact of how much is it costing us in these trying times. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Goldsworthy. In terms of, you mentioned there in terms of receiving emails in Welsh and not English, I'm not aware that as a council we send only Welsh emails out to members. So I don't know if that's more personal emails that come from other organisations, possibly through the medium of Welsh, but emails I see coming out from external organisations are often bilingual, so maybe the Welsh is first sometimes because that would be their policy, but often there's an English translation further down in the email. So maybe you might want to kind of clarify that particular point for me, and maybe I can give you a better answer with regards to.
Yes, it is that now, Ewan, but I don't want to actually just scroll down. I just want to read an email, and I know that might be selfish, but it's everything at the moment that I'm having, and as a result of it, I'm missing a lot of emails, which is important. I mean, I do have my own little issues, I know that, but it makes my life difficult and my role difficult when I'm missing things, or it's coming in now, but it seems to be coming fast and furious. So we might not be doing it at the moment. So before we actually get to that point, because that's the way some people will want to push it, I'm just saying, if it does, then I'd like a choice of it not being in Welsh first for myself.
So from a member's perspective, I can, in terms of what used to happen in Carmarthenshire, members could choose to either receive it in Welsh, in English, or bilingually, so that they had a choice. I think, in terms of the other emails you are referring to, my only suggestion there would be maybe that you contacted those organisations that are sending you those emails and ask to only receive those emails through the medium of English, if that was your preference. And that's the best of the answer I can give you on or advice I can give on that particular one. You also mentioned how much is the Welsh language costing us as an authority. I don't have any figures to hand with regards to that. Clearly, in line with the Welsh language standards, anything we publish on our website needs to be published bilingually. So we do incur costs for the translation of any documents that are published onto our website. And clearly we don't in Neath Talbot Council have a in-house translation service. And therefore we link in with Swansea Council for them to provide us with a translation service. But there are other translators that are used by other parts of the authority as well when it comes to that. And that is a piece of work that we are currently looking at to see whether we can reduce our costs when it comes to Welsh language translation. Interestingly, if I was speaking to Jeremy Eves the other day, who works with Welsh Government and is the lead in terms of achieving the million Welsh speakers by 2050. And there's a significant amount of work taking place in Bangor University with regards to the use of artificial intelligence for translation. And it is very, very, very good by all accounts. So, there's definitely technology coming down with the lines that will reduce our costs even further when it comes to translating. But for me, and this is a personal opinion, the more Welsh language we can put out in the public domain, the better. Diolch.
Diolch, Nolwyn. Charlotte, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nolwyn, because you're a Welsh speaker. But to be honest with you, as a non-Welsh speaker, and it is a difficult language, and I know I'm not the only one that feels like this. Sometimes I just feel sometimes that we come under attack if we voice our opinion on the Welsh language. But budgets to me are much more important at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. Now we're going to move to Deputy Leader Alan Llewellyn first, and then we got one question in the chamber from Councillor Patterson. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. It's just to come back in briefly on the points that Charlotte's raised, and the responses from Nolwyn. I think the point that I make, I certainly agree with the response that Nolwyn made, that if people are able to indicate preferences, and if that can be done, within the technicalities, so that people can say which they prefer. I'll give an example. The newsletter that we get, the MPT media bulletins, and I encourage all residents to try and sign up for that, so that they get the information from the council. And you can ask for that in either language or bilingually. And I've asked for it bilingually so that I can actually share it on local social media, and everybody can understand it, whichever their own preferences are when I discuss with the residents. The point that I make is that we do have the Welsh language standards, and I agree they do come across as a bit bureaucratic. Well, they are a bit bureaucratic, but you compare them with the situation not so long ago when there was nothing in place for standardising the question of everything going out bilingually for the two official languages of Wales. Because we have two official languages in Wales, Welsh and English, and that is a Welsh government status. And not so long ago, there was an argument about almost everything. Every sign, every banner, every leaflet, people would either have to request it specially in Welsh, or it would go out in English only, and there'd be an argument about it. And the amount of time that was taken, and distress that it caused, totally unnecessarily. We're quite clear now, both languages have equal status. And as an authority, along with every other authority in Wales, we make sure that everything goes out bilingually. And I think you'll see that the number of complaints that are coming in is probably reflected somewhere in the report that we're talking about. The number of complaints about things not being available bilingually has dropped almost totally, because it happens naturally and professionally as a part of the work of the authority. And I don't think we want to undo that. I really don't. And in terms of cost, well, of course, the point I'd make is that if we are using 2 languages, the cost is equal to both languages.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, for your observations. I'm now going to come to Councillor Patterson in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. When we had the task and finish for the use of trying to increase the Welsh language, I don't believe there was very much budget on that at all. It was just basically for the staff that we were using for those meetings, and everything else had to be cost neutral or go to a grant or find something like that. So I don't think it came across as the council's money that was going into that. So that was just the one point I would make. And the next one, Chair, if you bet, is a question about the response from Lana. Is it going to go to all members, or can I request that as well? Because I'm particularly interested in what the RLDP are doing with respect to Welsh language as well.
You can send it to all members.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for your question and your observation. Thank you. So following scrutiny, members, we are now going to note the report. Moving on to part 4, which is agenda item 7, which are the selection of items for future scrutiny. Again, these can be found on your agenda packs on pages 83 to 90, and we're going to call in Alison to give us an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh gosh, sorry, Chair, I'm throwing my pen at you. So there was just one item to draw to members' attention, and that's going to Cabinet on the 12th of March, and that was the 6th monthly annual governance statement. I've had no indications from members that they wish to call that item for post-scrutiny. However, as per the norm, when the Cabinet's agendas are published, we will of course let scrutiny members know and draw their attention to any members, any reports which are relevant to this committee, which members may wish to add to the forward work programme in the future. But that was the only update I had, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to agenda item 8, which are any urgent items at the discretion of the chairperson pursuant to section 100BA 6B of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. I can confirm there are no urgent items, and I would now like to close the meeting. For those at home, thank you very much for your attendance, and those in the chamber, have a great afternoon. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks all.